So I'm going to read just a tiny little piece. I promise I'm not going to read it very long. I had the opportunity to write a little afterward for academic, big, thick academic study, a bunch of essays about Stephen's works. And because the book's probably, what, $100, $75? I know that not very many people are going to buy it. Anyway, I just want to read a piece about what I think and what I feel about Stephen's work. I have a confession to make. Stephen's stories intimidate the writer me. His winding, beautiful sentences that both tell and keep secrets, the rhythm and beat of his voice, different in each story, yet recognizably his, the audacity of his imagination, the breathtaking moments of lift, the rawness, authenticity, precision of emotion, the integrity of his passion and vision, and the unquantifiables that make up the mystery and the miracle of fiction. Stephen can do it all, as evidenced by the depth and breadth of his ever-expanding, now I'm going to say this last word like Jeffrey Ford, oeuvre. Stephen, I want to start by talking about, I first met Stephen on February 19th, 2008. And I know the exact date because we had been online friends for a little bit. But this was his first time that I had known him, that he was on the East Coast. He was at Brown University. Giving a talk. So we went to dinner. And I had a little stack of books for him to sign. And we signed them. And the first one was Demon Theory. He signed it. This is pure autobiography. Now, if any of you has read Demon Theory, it's a 3-part treatment of a screenplay about a slashery thing, which didn't seem very grateful to me. And I've often asked him about so many of his stories. And he always, for a few years, it's been a while now, but he used to always say, yeah, this one's autobiographical. So I want you to start by explaining yourself. Explain your 2008 self.
When I wrote that about Demon Theory, is this the title that right? Can I hear me? My voice sounds really big to me. The core of Demon Theory, the core scene of Demon Theory is that Drew wreck that happens there. And that Drew wreck is a record that happened to me. So that's why it's autobiographical. But in a larger sense, to back up, every novel you write is you run really fast for 10 or 12 pages and you hit a wall. Then you run 10 or 12 pages, you hit a wall. Nowadays, what you do when you hit that wall is you go on social media and cast about like it's a romantic situation, it's like tragic or anything. But I did this my first novel in '97, I guess, and there wasn't any social media to get cast about on, and I was on deadline anyway. I had to get this novel done quick. So every time I hit that 10 or 12 page wall, I would just reach in my head and pull out a scene from my life and put on the page, change the names, and I got through the novel that way. That's how I got over all the hurdles of the novel. And ever since then, that's been my model for writing novels, is every time I hit an impasse, I just put my own life in, which seems, it's not really me saying my life is important, it's me not being very creative, I think. But that's why all my books to me feel intensely autobiographical. Even Zombie Bake Off, which is about zombie wrestlers versus soccer moms, feels really autobiographical because I said it in the place where I graduated college, in the actual auditorium where I graduated. So it feels like I'm running across the stage again.
Well, so a good segue. Let's back up a little bit just to ask a few sort of autobiographical, actual questions. Like, you can talk a little bit about where you grew up, where you went to high school. The high school I'm particularly interested in because I feel like so many of your stories involve like high schoolers.
They do.
High school experience.
Chris Rivera said to me once, he said, you do that teenage angst really well. And I was like, wow, thank you. But I was leaving like 2 hours later and I realized, was he insulting me? I never grew up. But I grew up in West Texas. We were the only black people in West Texas as far as we knew. And Midland, Texas. Do you know Midland? Midland, it's a little, I grew up, Midland was a big city to us. I grew up in a place, we're just a bunch of trailers out in the pasture. You couldn't hardly see any other lights for miles and miles around. And the high school I went to a lot of high schools. That kid in Mongrels, my werewolf novel Mongrels, that kid is always moving from school to school. That was me. We were always throwing our stuff into the horse trailer and dragging it to the next town and being there for a while, for a few months. I went to a lot of high schools. The one you might recognize would be Midland Lee, because of the Lee Permian thing and Friday Night Lights, I went there for one semester, and there was actually 83 days in that fall semester, and I had 82 truancies. So I didn't get to stay at Lee very long. And graduation picture was really easy to get together. But I went to just a whole lot of high schools. I was always the new kid, always the one getting pushed in the halls to see if I pushed back. That's what happens to the kids.
So when did you start writing stories?
I started writing when I was 19 years old, and what had happened was I never planned to go to college. That was the last thing on my to-do list. I was going to be a farmer. That's all I was ever going to be in my whole life, was a farmer. But then my mom surprised me when I graduated high school, that alternative school. She gave me a suitcase. She said, you need to get out of town, because she could see which way I was going. And she said, also, you've always been reading books your whole life, so I've saved up enough money for you to go to one semester of school. And I thought, I can go take a break from farming for 4 months. And so I let her pay for me to go to one semester of school. But I took a reasoning course, a beginning philosophy course, and sitting in that classroom, I realized that every person in that classroom had read a text and was talking about that text as if the words in there mattered. And I had never been in an environment like that. I had never been among people who talked about books and thoughts and thinking and the world. And it just blew my mind that this could actually exist. And so I took out loans and did a lot of jobs and worked my way through the rest of college. But that first year, this is actually the second semester of my first year, I was sitting in my World Comp class. It was a 300-person lecture on the back of the auditorium. I've got a spiral notebook and a pen. And I'm just kicked back, taking notes about Canterbury Tales or whatever. And 2 police officers come in from the sunlight, and they take their sunglasses off, start looking around, and I sink lower and lower, because I know they're there for me, because every time cops are in the area, they're always there for me, And they, sure enough, they point me out, they say, you out in the hall. And so I slouch out to the hall with them. And instead of confessing to all the stuff they could be there for, I just stay quiet for once, And it turns out they're not there to pick me up for what I did last weekend. They're there because one of my uncles had been burned over like 85% of his body. Terrible, terrible burns. They didn't expect him to live. And the town I was in West Texas, had the best burn unit of anywhere in West Texas. They had airlift from there. I was the only family they could find. And so they brought me to the burn unit ICU to see so I could sit there to see if he would live or die. I was a family member. And so I sat there for 3 days and 3 nights waiting on that. And all I had was that pen and a spiral. And so I got bored and I wrote a story. Just made stuff up. And when I came back to class, my Composition 2 class, the next week, I was missing 2 classes, Wednesday and Friday. I said, I told the teacher, I said, I didn't do my essay I was supposed to do, but here's some proof that I was writing. So I tore out my notebook and gave it to her. And I thought maybe she'd give me a C anyways. And it turns out she submitted it she typed it herself, she typed it up for me, and submitted it for a departmental award, and it won the award. And, so that was the first check I got for writing. And that was amazing that you could turn lies into money. I had never experienced that transmutation before. And so after that, I dedicated myself to experiencing that transmutation every chance I could. That's when I started.
Cool. I mean, that sort of takes part of my next question was going to be who was the first person to take notice of your work. I mean, so I guess obviously that was the first.
Yeah.
You have an essay on your linked on your Demon Theory site called Why I Write. It's a really wonderful essay. So I kind of want to ask something that references that. So if you guys want to read that at some point, it's very quick. It's excellent. But you talk a little about that first person to notice, but also talk about the idea of also writing for revenge, to show them all kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember I said that I had 82 truancies of 83 days at Midland Lane. The reason for that was I was only there 1 day. I was there the very first day of the semester, and I went to my government class, and I was sitting in the back of the class, just waiting for it to start, and the teacher walks in, and she looks at all of us, just casing us. There's probably 20, 22 of us. And of everybody, she picks me out, and she says, you, get your greasy head off my chalkboard. And so I walked out and never went back to high school, So that's the kind of revenge. And also I remember before that, one of my teachers, my biology teacher, stopped in class to put me up against the wall to say, everybody look at Stephen, you think he's funny now, but wait till you see him in 10 years. So that's revenge.
Yeah. So the question, we just did a panel before this about the works of you. When this, and it was really interesting because I know like when a publisher puts on the book, this is probably necessarily your choice, but you know, so many of these publishers will find, you know, Native American, you know, you have somebody big off mentions this, but then I look at your bios, and I know Stephen does the bios. And so whenever I read the bios, I mean, it's really like, I won't say straightforward, but it says, you know, he is the owner of this and this. So I'm curious as to how you, maybe how you see yourself as a writer, do you care whether people like call you as a writer, or what type of thing?
You know, I guess I do care. I guess if I had to characterize myself in my writing, I would say he's somebody with very low standards.
John's is an exact second.
But really, people always ask me about writer's block, and I tell them there's no such thing as writer's block. There's you having too high standards. If you just lower your standards, you can get a lot of words done. But yeah, I do generally have a little bit of control over the bios. I do care. I mean, let's see how to say this. I hate that dynamic where somebody will pick up a book they know has American Indian content. Maybe they know about the title or they've seen a review or something. I hate the way they flip it over and look at the picture and say, "Oh, he's Indian. I can read this." You know, I don't like that validation by this kind of hair, that kind of skin. That's not what it means to be Indian. You know, and my first publisher wanted me to put my picture on the jacket, and I told them I'm not going to do that, and they told me you're going to do that, and I kept telling them no. They kept bugging me and bugging me. So finally, I went to the park and shot baskets, and had my wife hide 100 yards away in the bushes, and she took a photo of me. And I mailed that into them where I'm like this little in the distance. I was trying to do an action shot.
Did you make the shot?
No, probably not. And I mailed that into them, and they wrote back and said, "Ha, give me a real one." And so then I laid on the living room floor of with our tan carpet. My wife, I used to have a lot longer hair. My wife brushed my hair out in the big sun. And she stood over me and took a picture, and they didn't think that was funny. So I probably stood up against the wall and let her take a picture of me. We said in the first one she took. And, I want to just be a writer who is Indian. I don't want to be an Indian writer. I don't want whoever the market, the critics, whoever, to put me in a pigeonhole and be able to dismiss me. Because I think anytime people can put an acronym in front of your name, that's the first step towards dismissing you. When they put you in a category, they can forget about you then. So I want to just be a writer. That's what I want to be.
All right, so you are one of the few people I know for which, because I feel like I hear from other people who talk about, "Oh, I'm not writing, I'm dying," kind of thing. I don't know, that feels like affectation. You never say that, but for you, it's true. I mean, I've seen you in action. So you wrote the idea for a story in the middle of a panel on the back of a business card that was on there. He's literally always writing. He tells me, "Oh, on the plane ride, I wrote this thing on a napkin." It's the story. You can't see his hands are below the table right now. He just finished another Tor.com novella. Where the author is being interviewed, but he's really a slasher, just planning on how he's going to take out later. Anyway, I guess that's sort of just a little joke. Lead into, I want to talk about teaching a little bit, because I know writing is obviously such a part of who you are. Does teaching scratch not a similar itch, but like do you have a similar passion for teaching? Is it?
I do. I really, one semester, this was probably back around 2002, I guess, 2003. I was teaching two writing courses that I taught before, and I thought, I can just turn my brain off and coast through these classes. And so I kind of did that. I just put it on cruise and went through 16 weeks that way. But during those 16 weeks, I didn't write anything, because it turns out that, for me anyways, if I don't give 100% in every facet of my life, then I don't give 100% in writing. And so if I don't give everything I've got to teaching, then I coast on writing. So it's very important to me. That's just a selfish reason to do it, I guess, but it feels like such a cheat getting to go to classrooms and just talk to people about books and stories and writers and words and narrative and dramatic lines and antagonists and protagonists and dramatic irony, just everything that makes up a story. It's such a privilege, and it's so stupid that I get a paycheck for it. It feels like a total scam, And it's really cool too when publishing. That's one of my favorite things. Or when you see that light go off and they get bit, you know, and I can tell that they're probably going to be in this for a while. You know, maybe the rest of their while.
So you're not going to switch over to teaching math at any point?
No, I'm not a math tutor, as you might have guessed me.
So let me go back to demon theory, because you know, the first 4 hours, although I guess, I mean, the timeline for me is a little bit messed up in my head, but the first 4, and I guess that includes All the Beautiful Sinners, but they weren't necessarily horror novels.
Yeah.
It's certainly not marketed that way. And then I was like, whoa, demon theory. Like, was your agent at the time, like, what's with this fear? Or was there, because I remember you talking a little bit, like, when we first met, about, like, how you almost, like, felt free to write horror. Like, it was, like, a really exciting thing when you first started. I'm sure you wrote a lot of horror stories, but when you first started really publishing horror.
You know, Demon Theory was actually the second novel I wrote. I wrote it in 1999. I had to wait till 2006 or 5 or whatever to get it published because of Daniel Leedsky's House of Leaves. Because there was already a footnote horror novel on the scene. Right. So I had to wait for it to settle a bit. But, you know, the reason that I started investing just all my energy into horror instead of just some of my energy, it was about 2005, 2007. It was because I was going to book events, to, you know, bookstore Q&As, book groups, whatever, and people kept asking me questions where I could tell they were using my work as a lens to focus on American Indian culture or situation or politics or anything, which is to say they weren't reading the books as books, they were reading them as a way to look at Indians, you know, which is a weird way to use art. For me, it's a weird way to use art. I don't think it's a really great way to use art. If I do art, I'm going to say if I do art. But, so I kind of just said, screw y'all, I'm going to write about zombies and werewolves and slashers and see what you make of that. You know? And so I just started doing that, and I'm still doing that.
All right, Villa Dugatti. I love sort of the origin story of this novella. Yeah. The Trail of Villa Dugatti. You wrote it in 3 days. I mean, it's a novel, short novel. You wrote it in 3 days, right? It's a novel that opens with a reference to your father's suicide note. There's like time travel, this thing called the Cable Key, and you wrote it in 3 days.
Yeah. I was doing the 3-day novel contest then. That was my second time to do it. The first time I did it, me and my wife, or mostly my wife, because I've run things, she cooked me a big thing of manwich, and I had like 3 boxes of honeycombs, because those are like my 2 favorite things in the world.
Honeycombs?
Yeah, they're so good. I don't know how people don't eat them all the time. And I thought, so a 72-hour novel must be about staying awake for 72 hours. That made sense to me. And so I tried to do that, but I kept waking up with like 36 pages of the letter in, you know, as I fall asleep. And I did reach the word count or whatever in that 72 hours, but it was a junky novel. It's dislinear, it doesn't make sense. So the next year, when I competed again, I thought it must have been my method that was a failure. So I did something different. I wrote in about 75 to 90-minute sessions, and then I would go shoot free throws for 30 minutes, then I'd come back and write, then I'd come inside and watch the Three's Company, then I'd go write. And then I'd go down to the store and just look at candy and stuff, you know, for a while. Then I'd come back and write. And what that taught me was that I'm only good for, at the maximum, an hour and a half at the keyboard. After that, I can keep doing words, but they don't matter. They're just going, you know. So I have to reset my brain by doing something that doesn't involve my brain, really. You know, not that basketball doesn't involve your brain, but it's a different sort of brain. Yeah.
Let's bring up a few little smaller questions here. Let's focus on the horror a little bit more. Do you remember what's your first horror movie that you saw?
The first one I saw was we always lived in the country, but I say always. When I was in 2nd grade, for a few months, we moved into town, and the house we moved in still had cable access until we had HBO. I'd never seen. In the country, all we had was like Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best. And I think those were the 2 main ones I remember actually. But in town, there's just so many channels and opportunities. And so in the late 70s, I guess it was, I remember being transfixed in front of HBO watching John Carpenter's The Eyes of Laurel Mars. And I don't remember the movie at all, but I remember the credits came up. I remember I finally breathed, you know. But the first horror movie I remember seeing was one of our Thanksgiving Thanksgivings, and my uncle rented a VCR from the gas station and brought a movie to stash all the kids in the back bedroom. But the movie he got was, oh God, it's a Disney, The Watcher in the Woods? Yeah, Watcher in the Woods, and that movie messed me up. Yeah, I'm still messed up from that movie. And I've written a lot of stories and novels that I think are me doing fan fiction of that movie. Because I think that story in it is pretty untouchable. And I was the oldest cousin at the time, so I think I was the only one who wasn't resting on the ground. I was just sitting there in front of a 12-inch round curved screen watching in the woods. Yeah, it was terrifying.
Was that something that made you want to watch more, or was it more like a different either story that you read or a movie that was sort of like horror patient zero?
My horror patient zero story is a story, I can't remember the writer's name right now, maybe one of you don't know it. The Stone Boy. Stone Boy. It's about, you do, all right, Richard knows it. It's about two boys who are going out to pick grapes at dawn because the stems are crisper and you can get the grapes better. And they bring a 20 grapes and plump squirrels or birds or whatever. And on the way, they're cutting under a fence. And the older brother brings the rifle against the fence and crawls under. And while he's crawling under, the rifle tilts, shoots him in the back of the head, and kills him instantly. And the younger brother goes on to pick grapes. Because picking grapes is good when it's cool. And then he comes back home with a bucket full of grapes. And everybody's freaking out, like, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you scream and cry? He's like, I had to pick the grapes. You know, it was a good time to pick grapes. And that, I still just got chills when I said it, which is weird. But that story really programmed me for horror, I think. As for my horror ground zero movie, Howling, I think Howling was the first one I saw, actually. And that's really up to imprint.
All right, so like a canopy that's sort of jumping around the timeline here.
A canopy is a giant, invisible, time-traveling caterpillar. One of the novels.
Yeah, and no one's got it. That's reading all. So you and Joe Lee, I mean, you obviously grew up in
East Texas.
Or East Texas,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I know Texas is big, but your two works to remind me, or some of your works and some of his works, I think there's a commonality in some ways. And I know that you two are really good friends now. I don't know if you consider him a mentor or vice versa. But if you want to talk about how you met Joe or the relationship.
I met Joe in 2001 or 2002. We were both down in Austin for a convention, and we ended up on the Conan the Barbarian panel, which was amazing. Conan, a hero of heroes, I guess. But it was amazing to me to listen to Joe Lansdale, because that dude could go off on Conan and on everything else too. But he said something on that panel, like at the Q&A period. He said, somebody asked him what genre do you write in, and Joe Lansdale just shrugged and said, I write the Joe R. Lansdale genre. And I thought, that's who I want to be. That's the way to be.
Well, going back to grad school, because you were even considering, you already talked about going to college. Were there important to bring back the teaching part? Were there important teachers during that time when you were graduate school and getting your PhD?
Working on my master's, there's a guy, Bill Cobb, whose fiction still informs everything I do. When I read his stuff, I always realize that I'm just still trying to be him on the page. And then working on my doctorate, Janet Burway was my dissertation director. She was amazing. Janet Burway, she's been like a Pulitzer finalist. She's done everything in the world we can do with writing, and she's got all those writing textbooks too, the writing fiction series, or all the editions of that book. Anyways, she was a great guitar. What I learned from Janet, I asked her one day towards the end of my doctorate, I said, you've been doing this forever. Can you tell me the best piece of advice you got? She thought about it, and she said her biggest regret from writing is that while her family was growing up in the living room, she was in the study with the door closed writing novels, so she missed her family growing up. And I really took that to heart, and so when my family started up, I always made a big point to leave the door open, or to try to drag my laptop into the living room to write, and not care about kids interrupting me or anything, because I didn't want to have that same regret. Books are great, but family is everything.
Right. Perfect sense. Because you're a father, you have two children. And with your more recent published work, especially, I know as I say published work, because I know you've written probably hundreds of other things that haven't yet been published. But I'm thinking of in particular the collection after the people lights go off, long girls mapping the interior. In particular, a story within that collection. After the people lights go off, Raphael. And I didn't even realize it until fairly recently, just, sit down looking at, all that you've done. So much of what this newer work is about families or kids dealing with their parents or parents, dealing with being, the idea that now I'm an adult and I'm a parent. Even your most, I don't know if it's your most recent story, but the story of Fangoria, issue 4 that just came out. He has a really great story in that as well. So, I'm not trying to be glib, but did you realize, that some of this recent stuff, it really is, not really is, but, there's all this, kids, parents, do you think some of that's still more, is it just the autobiographical part of shifting, purposely, or has it just been?
Yeah, it's probably just I'm losing my creative faculty, so I'm just not making stuff up, I guess. But no, I didn't even realize that. You're right, of course. But when Larry Barry wrote the intro for my horror collection, The Ones That Got Away, he mentioned something about how these are mostly childhood stories of looking up at scary things. And I was like, really? I had no idea. I don't think about things in those ways. But he's totally right. They were all like that. So no, I didn't even realize that at all. My kids are 20 and 17 right now, and I suspect that with one of them already leaving the house and one of them about to leave, I might be looking back to when they were 4 and 5, and thinking I should have played like those a little more.
Right. Yeah, I think that might come too. Yeah. So when you talk about taking stuff from real life, I definitely identify with that myself. Take from my family a lot. Is there a line with the kids? Have you ever said, even though I have kids in the story, it's not Raymond, it's not my daughter, or other times where you've been close, do you feel like you've gone close to a line?
I do feel like there's a line, but I feel like I always make myself cross it. I don't, like in that Fangoria story, that hurt me doing what happened to that kid, because I remember my kid being that age. But, so yeah, there is definitely a line, and I'm definitely aware of where it is, but I always make myself skip over it, because that's a horror writer's job. You've got to go where it's uncomfortable and where you don't want to go. That's what people are paying the dollars for your book, because you'll go 2 steps further than they will, And so I feel like if I'm signed up to be a horror writer, that's my job. I've got to go to the bad places.
All right, so we're going to pick up the pace with a lightning round. We can expand, but I'm going to try to hit you with some quick questions. First one, M&M's or Sixlets?
Sixlets, bro.
Wrong. I never even heard of Sixlets. It's are they available?
You have to go really old gas stations or dollar stores.
I know the answer to this one, in case everybody else does. Iced tea or hot tea?
Iced tea.
A brief anecdote, because it's one, because he's, Steven the genius right now, so we're just going to bring him down a little bit back here. We were both in Los Angeles for the Festival of Books on the USC campus. And I had just told Steven, because we both eat pickles, we both have similar food hates. I said, Steven, I'm trying to be more adult with my beverages now. I'm actually drinking hot tea, which is a newish thing for me. As a picky child, my rule was, food is hot, drinks are cold. So they said, okay. I was talking to Vincent Pepin about to try a hot tea. And we were in the green room where all these other writers, are around, and, I get Steven, a liquid tea. And he took one sip and literally, one of my kids took a sip and covered his mouth, ran over, spit it outside. I don't think we've tried hot tea since.
And also the panel, I kept coughing. I couldn't stop coughing from that tea. And then I went to my panel. There's 200 people out there, and I had to sneak out the back door and cough for 10 minutes. And when I came back to my panel, the crowd had crowdsourced all these cough drops for me. Yeah, that was my last attempt for hot tea.
As we continue to the lightning round, are you going to agree to play fair, you have to answer?
Yes.
Yeah, or you have to answer.
Yeah.
Say both.
Yeah, that's what I answer.
Halloween or Friday the 13th?
Friday the 13th.
Is it even closer or
It's really close. Yeah, Friday the 13th is just trying to rip off Halloween, of course. I like Friday the 13th.
Whenever I see, every Halloween that he has pictures, it's usually in a Jason mask. I can just imagine some of the students being terrified of a pretty big guy with a Jason mask.
Yeah, it's fun.
Any students say, that's kind of scary?
No, but I did. One Halloween, I was supposed to go to a bookstore. This is just messing with the lightning round, I'm sorry.
No.
I was supposed to go to a bookstore, but I was also supposed to go to a Halloween party. And so I put on all my Jason gear and had me a big plastic machete with blood on it. And I went to my reading, and it didn't look like the event was set up, so I just kept cruising back and forth past the registers hoping somebody would see me. And then I started to realize, look behind me, and I realized that all the sales force there was forming like a big half circle behind me. I realized they're going to jump me. You know? and so we had to kind of stand up, and I had to like de-mask and show this was a plastic machete and all this stuff. But it turns out I was at the wrong bookstore.
So I guess the answer to that question was no. I think I know the answer to this too, but I'm interested to see if you have anything to add to it. Slashers or zombies?
Slashers, whatever.
Why slashers? Why?
I love slashers because the arc of the final girl is always so crisp and distinct and visible. In a slasher, the final girl generally starts out kind of bookish and reserved. At the end, she's got a chainsaw and she's just cutting heads off left and right. You know, I love that transformation. I love going from a distinct A to a distinct B. You know, and I think that's why I love slashers, because it's built for that arc.
So I mentioned zombies. This is more, it's not really a question, it's just more of a reaction. Lightning round. Kitten hand grenades, really?
Kitten hand grenades, yes. Yeah.
It's a weird tale story.
Yeah.
How about your favorite werewolf movie or story?
Favorite werewolf movie is Ginger Snaps. Favorite werewolf story is by James Blish. It's called There Shall Be Darkness.
What was the first story or book that you wrote that you thought, maybe I can't do this?
Probably Demon Theory in 1999. I felt with Fast Red Road, my first novel, I felt like I cheated. Like I just skated. I didn't do it honestly, but Demon Theory, I hacked that one out.
Yeah. You said hack that one.
Yeah, I hacked it.
This is a basketball question.
Yeah.
Would you rather be able to dunk consistently, like whenever you wanted to, or make 28 three-pointers in a row? And are you curious as to why I chose 28?
I have no reason. I would rather be a consistent dunker, because I think it would feel good to hang on the rim like that, you know?
Correct. As much as it pains me to say. Sturgill Simpson or 80s hair metal?
Oh, that's hard. 80s hair metal. Actually, room service was quite ticked off with me. I ordered a club sandwich, and it wasn't coming, and then the phone rang, and I don't know how the phones work here, so I picked it up and pushed a button.